Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. I honestly would have made this video earlier in time if my internet modem didn't shit on me. I just had to get a technician to come look at it and fix it a couple days ago. But I'm back with another video. Today I'm going to be continuing the homeless chronology series by talking about all the instances of me being homeless in 2019. I was only 16 and 17 years old at the time. If you thought the amount of experience I had talked about in the last video was bad, feel free to keep the video rolling. Before we get into this, please make sure to give this video a like, subscribe to my channel if you're new to my content, and don't forget to click on the notification bell to be notified whenever I upload. Share this video to anybody that's ever been kicked out of their crib, and let's play the homeless chronology in 2019. The seventh time I've been homeless was actually only 4 days into the entire year. I got kicked out trying to sneak out and hang out with some friends. It was pretty bogus because the person who was going to pick me up wasn't patient enough to wait for me to sneak out without getting caught after he already pulled up. I blew my cover going back in the house and was kicked out the same night. I was only gone for a night. Luckily, the same person who was going to pick me up came back, but he dropped somebody off before I ended up walking all the way across town waiting for him. I actually ended up spending the night at one of his ex's house and was able to convince my mom to take me back home. A few days later, me and my parents got into a pretty wicked fight over weed. My parents were basically suspecting me of possessing some, and in the end they had me charged for less than 2 grams. The police even advised me to find another place to stay for the night just to cool down the situation. Essentially, that turned into the 8th time I was homeless. I had to walk to a friend's house and sit and wait there until I was able to hit up another friend and have his mom pick me up, but that was a whole nother mess of its own considering the issues dude I hit up to crash at his place and his mom had been having together. I came back home the next day after school once again just to assume that things would go back to normal. Once again, pathetic. Same day I came back and I ended up homeless for the 9th time. I got kicked out again. This time, my mom took my phone and I was left to fend for myself. We basically got into another argument about the fact that I still smoke weed, and she pretty much rejected my request of coming back home after practically asking for the first time. I ended up house hopping from that point because I just didn't want to deal with whatever my mom had in store. I was gone for another 5 days. It sucked because I had to rely on different people to not only bring me to work, but to bring me back to their place if I was going to spend a night there. I came back home again one day after work, and my stepdad basically convinced my mom to take me back because of not only the law, but the fact that he felt the whole situation regarding me being kicked out and charged for weed was a little excessive. Of course, that didn't age well at all, but back in 2019, my stepdad was more lenient towards being the kind of dad that was disciplinary, but also laid back and somewhat of a rebel. Now he just hates my guts. About a month later, my mom confronted me about skipping school again after she got another phone call from the school. I lied to her about it at first, so she got me in an act and had brought my stepdad into the argument to defend her once again. I was homeless for the 10th time then, being gone for 3 days. I spent the weekend at the same place I spent just a month prior when my mom kicked me out for assuming that I was smoking in the house. I actually got to perform with my choir class at a concert for my school during the duration of me not being home over these 3 days. You know, going to school, taking the bus stops to different places, and being congratulated for a performance was definitely a way to save more time being in the streets. It was also around this time that it wasn't too apparent to everybody, to the point where everybody was saying something, but some of my classmates were starting to develop the concept of my situation, considering that since choir was first hour, it's the first place I would go to for school. It was the portable classroom detached from the main school building too, and me being me, I hated school and getting up in the mornings back then, so I walked damn near every day with extra shit looking like a hobo. I came back home again after the concert, but I would only be back for a day. Literally not even 15 minutes after I got home from school the next day would come my 11th time being homeless. My stepdad suspecting me that I brought weed in the house again and brought my mom into the argument again. It was already starting to get out of hand, and that's when I actually decided to record them just in case they would put hands on me. That way I would have evidence, but they snatched that shit right out of my hand and went on with their usual fucked up procedures. I got kicked out again too. I got to walk to a buddy's crib with a bloody nose in the cold weather, and his family that he was staying with at the time were actually down to let me stay with them for a little while until things would calm down again. I only stayed with this dude for 2 weeks. The only reason reason why it wasn't longer because after I tried talking to my dad about staying with him and how that all went wrong, my dad ended up telling my mom about where he picked me up, what I told him about my situation, and that she was threatening to not only call me in as a runaway, but report my friend and his family to the police for harboring an underage runaway. It doesn't help that they were all 18 and up at the time too. It's so funny also because she tried to bullshit with me when I came home by myself by keeping me locked, and I had to get another friend along with the police themselves to get me back in the house for once. I also lost my job at Cub Foods at this time frame since it's so cold in Minnesota in the winter. Doing round trips on foot to work every day sounds fairly deadly. And I still didn't have a car from that car crash that was only about 8 months in the past at the time. Only 3 fucking days after I had the police escort me back into my room, I get kicked out for spending a night at the homie's crib without my mom's permission, which the same person that helped me get back home the last time. 12th time being homeless, I actually got to ride around town with a close friend of mine who actually had a pretty shitty drug addiction at the time for 3 days straight. We were essentially living in his car. To be fair, I was pretty fucked up myself, getting high and drunk, going to trap houses in the cities where everything's sketchy, dirty people fiending around, needles on the floor, and pretty much everything you can think of when it comes to a drug house. I even remember sneaking inside the house just to sleep in my room for a few hours without getting caught by my parents, and lost my driver's license towards the end of the night when I snuck out again to hang out with the same person, but my mom ended up replacing that a couple weeks later. But with this instance of being homeless, it was then when I knew a lot more about the drug epidemic that's been going on for a while. Things were smooth again for almost a couple of months, but my stepdad ended up ruining that streak by turning an argument about spitting snot in a cup, leaving it, and throwing it away in the wrong trash bin after being told to throw away the cup into pretty much a near-death experience. I swear, I feel like my parents were always on games, and that applies to a lot of other people too. But he had to be drunk or something, man. He pulled out a switchblade from his bag out of nowhere and chased me with it. I didn't get stabbed though. I ran all the way to the nearest restaurant to settle down. I had to use their internet since I didn't have a job at the time and couldn't afford my phone bill. I called another homie since I was pretty much already homeless for the 13th time at that point. I ended up explaining the story to him and some friends that were over at the time and spending a couple of nights at his place. I came back the next day and my stepdad was more chill after that, but things were starting to get real fucking tense with them involved with everything. Almost another couple months later, I was homeless for the 14th time. I got kicked out for not cleaning my room and preparing it for a painter to paint the walls gray one morning. I literally woke up to her throwing my shit out of the window, and that already led to a big fuss. I ended up walking all the way to a park far away just to get picked up by some friends and try acid for the first time. It was a hell of an experience. I spent the first day and night hanging out with a couple people and crashing at another friend's house who had gotten the house from his parents and wanted people to hit him up with a move or some drug to take. Second day and night, I stayed at the same house. Dude who I stayed with kicked me out twice. The first time was because he tried to convince me that his parents were very strict and that they wouldn't be comfortable with someone they've never met inside that house at all. The second time was rather more unexpected since it was the middle of that same night and he didn't want me staying there any longer without any money right there and then. I spent the rest of that homeless session with the same person from Thanksgiving 2017, but he had moved further out a year prior to this. I came back home to plastic covering instead of windows and gray painted walls. I got new windows about 3 weeks later, but man, I would not forget about them bugs that was sneaking into my room, bothering the fuck out of me, man. About 4 weeks later came the 15th time. I got kicked out again after leaving one of the 2 bikes that my mom bought for pretty much anyone in the house except me to use at a friend's house after I ate rotten food and was too sick to bike all the way back home. The friend who brought me back home that day couldn't bring the bike back with me because his car was too small and I had a mountain bike. My stepdad made me walk all the way back to get the bike on a rainy day the next day just to kick me out again. Spent the rest of that day hanging out with 4 people that were all interested in being in some kind of relationship that involves multiple people. I forgot the word for it. I think it's called a polyamory or some shit. It was pretty fucking weird. Like, I hated the vibes and I didn't have anywhere else to go, so I just felt shitty the whole day. Luckily, I was able to come home in the early morning after begging my mom over the phone. I still was out late at night, tired as fuck on the urge of passing out in the backseat of a friend's car. I did come home to damn near nothing though. I went from having somewhat of a setup in my room to just having one dresser and a bed, which ultimately led to the inactivity of 2019 and the last 2 times being homeless in 2019, just 5 days later. That all lasted within a week. The 16th and 17th times I was homeless stemmed pretty much from the same thing. I broke some stuff out of anger and got threats from my stepdad again. Just pure anger though. I was just upset about how the way things were going over a bike. I ended up hanging with a buddy, but he was trying to drop me off. He ended up letting me sleep in his truck with him until the morning when he dropped me off back home, where I hoped things would be smooth once again. 3 days later, the same thing happened again, except I broke my mom's windshield and got drunk. I got charged with underage drinking, a warning about the windshield damage, and I was forced to go to the hospital for a psych evaluation. I screamed at my mom right when she was going to pick me up and left me stranded at the hospital. From there, I would walk around town for about an hour until I had another buddy pick me up and hang out with him at another buddy's house for a couple days straight. He brought me back home pretty early in the morning afterwards. That concludes all of my homelessness experiences in 2019. In the year total, I've spent 36 nights being homeless with not having a place to stay for 5 of those nights. I slept in a car with someone for 3 days. He used to be my best friend. I slept in another friend's car waiting on my mom, and I slept in a truck with another friend at a rest stop after he almost fell asleep behind the wheel several times trying to sell some drugs. In 2017 and 18 combined, it was 33 nights with nowhere to stay for 2 of those nights. I slept under a bridge in a dugout by my old high school. Brutal. Thank you all for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Once again, if you like this video, please give this video a like, subscribe to my channel if you're new to my content, and don't forget to click on the notification bell to be notified whenever I upload. Share this video to anybody that's ever been homeless before. Stay tuned to the next part of this series. I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace out.